there's all sorts of reasons we can look at it, and it's nice to point the finger and say, look, it was HAARP, they did this. But also we've got extreme solar activity happening at the time. We've got the super moon happening. The moon is the closest it's been for 18.6 years. We've seen activity all around the Pacific Ring of Fire, like essentially the Pacific Plate and the Nazca Plate. We saw the earthquake in Chile. We saw the earthquake in New Zealand. Now we've seen one in Japan. It's not unreasonable to assume that we may soon see one in North America as well on the other side of the fault. So it's really open for debate. I'm on the fence either way. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a natural event, but then I wouldn't be surprised if HAARP was used to give it a bit of a nudge. But I really can't say. All I could really do is speculate on that.
Well, what do you think is the cause of all of these earthquakes as far as, is it just the planet is just, like David Icke was saying in the clip that we played earlier in the broadcast, the planet is just releasing this negative energy? I mean, is that a possibility there, that we've just come to a point to where disasters are imminent?
Well, we have come to a point. I mean, we're at a certain cycle as well. I mean, everybody's been waiting for this whole 2012 thing. They're expecting Earth change as well. What form did they expect these changes to take? This is what you have to expect. And we've all been expecting the Ring of Fire, the Pacific Ring. Even Nostradamus talks about the Ring of Fire. We've all been expecting activity on this plate for a long, long time. So it should be no surprise that we're now seeing it. Everything is changing. The whole solar system is changing. Every planet in the solar system is going through changes. It's not unreasonable to assume that we're going to go through changes as well. It could very well be due to negativity. I mean, there is certainly a lot of negativity on this planet due to our disconnection from the planet, I believe. And it's all open to speculation, Chris, to be honest. I've kind of expected stuff like this to happen, though. I've been expecting it for a long time.
Well, we have a question from Nanad, actually, one of our really loyal listeners, for Chris. What do you think about the fact that we shouldn't be surprised by this because they want 80% of us dead anyway?
Yeah, really that comes under this big kind of subject of global population reduction. That policy is in place, and that policy has been continuing. And war, such as the Second World War and the First World War, these are a mechanism which the royal political elite have been using to prune the human population. The Second World War was financed and orchestrated by members of the same aristocratic Bavarian British families. They knew exactly what they were doing, and the tens of millions of people that died and the extra millions that died under the Stalin regime in communist Russia that followed the Second World War, these things do not happen by accident. They are a continuation of a policy which has been going on and on and on. Nowadays, we're seeing the use of vaccines and other high-tech ways of pruning the population. Now, coming back to this Ring of Fire situation, the reason that it's called the Ring of Fire is because we're dealing with tectonic movements. The planet is basically the dry land, which is only 1/5 of the actual surface of our planet. The dry land is actually floating, if you like, on these giant tectonic plates. And these plates rub up against each other, and the continents are on the move. They are on the move very, very slowly, much slower than the hands on a clock, but they are moving. And if you turn the geological clock back, then what you find is that, for example, the United Kingdom, the British Isles, was at one time connected to what we now call Portugal and Spain. And Africa was also sort of connected to mainland Europe. And Australia was connected much closer to India. And these plates over the geological time frame, have actually been moving gradually apart. And as far as the Pacific is concerned, these tectonic plates are rubbing up against each other in a a fault line which really continues. It's called the San Andreas Fault Line in California. It goes right the way up towards Seattle, goes out into Alaska, goes out into the northern Pacific, and comes back down around Japan. And the reason it's called the Ring of Fire is because there is lava, molten rock, being exuded from the substrata on the Earth's crust underwater every second of every minute of every hour that goes by. And of course, most of the time that doesn't really, nobody really even knows about it. It's going on under immense pressure in very, very deep water. But that is really why it's called the Ring of Fire. And it's also where you get the lava welling up in these pistulas, which then form themselves into volcanoes. I do not think that this is the result of HAARP. I do not think it's the result of a neutron bomb, though, I wouldn't be surprised if some psychopathic person hasn't, worked out some plan of trying to shift these tectonic plates. What we're really dealing with is the movement of the continental plates, which has been going on since the time that the Earth was formed and that the Earth went through this cooling period. Now, you said at the beginning of the program, it seems suicidal to actually build these nuclear facilities right on fault lines. And I agree. I absolutely agree. I don't think we're dealing with HAARP. I don't think we're dealing with neutron bombs under the water, which has been postulated by various people. What we are dealing with, though, is utter recklessness and greed, people running after money, building nuclear facilities near where these tectonic plates are rubbing themselves together. And it's very interesting because some of the nuclear facilities have very, very questionable names. I believe that there is one in California, a nuclear facility, which is called Diablo. Now, that is the Spanish word for devil.
Jesus. That's terrible.
And plutonium has been named after the deity, the Greco-Roman deity of the underworld. Now, that I do agree with, and I think that there are these profiteering people in the royal political elite who have deliberately and viciously and maliciously and psychopathically just grabbed money and decided to say, hey, they've given nuclear reactor technology to Saddam Hussein. The French government actually built nuclear reactors for Saddam Hussein, and those two reactors were called Isis and Osiris. And Osiris is the Egyptian god of the dead. So we are dealing with a psychopathic royal political elite, a corporate elite, an industrial elite, who are deliberately naming these nuclear materials like plutonium after, deities which are associated with death and destruction.
Wow.
Wow. So we've got a lot of, not religious, but I guess you could call it religious symbolism
Yes.
ingrained in all this. I was actually telling Chris the other day, I was like, you don't understand. Radiation, nuclear radiation is a lot like, spiritually, it's a lot like a black hole. It's the lowest of the low on a spirituality kind of scale. And so when you're sucking the entire population of humanity into this disaster, it's going to create a lot of negative energy. And they feed off of that, apparently.
They do. A lot of things they do are all ritual. I mean, that's why they give these things these names. That'd be even why they've put these plants on these fault lines and things. It's disaster capitalism almost as well. You're putting this there, and it's an accident waiting to happen. There's going to be a huge amount of profit to be made from this in the long run for somebody. There always is when you follow the money.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're speaking with Max Igan and Christopher Everard. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back, and we'll talk about precautions and solutions.
who controls the web? The spider controls the web. And the spider is at a level that you never see. It's not Tony Blair. He's a strand. The Bush family, they're a strand. Even the Rockefellers are a strand. The real power that's manipulating all this, you never see. It operates from the shadows. So it's operating to a central intelligence. And this is why you're seeing the same things happen in all different countries at the same time. It's because the orders and the policy are coming from a central point. We can work on the level of banking scams, political scams, manipulated wars, manipulated 9/11s. And we should, because we need to know that. But if that's all we're doing in terms of communicating knowledge, then basically we're operating in a cycle of this is the problem, but how the hell do we get out of this? We will never know how to set ourselves free until we understand the nature of who we bloody well are. How do you set yourself free when you don't even know you are? How do you set yourself free when you don't even know the nature of reality that you're living in and manifesting and making happen without your knowledge that you're making it happen? You can't. So alongside the information about, the 5 sense level of this conspiracy, if you like, we have to just as powerfully, I would say more powerfully, communicate the nature of reality and how we are creating our reality and how we are allowing it to be created for us by having ourselves programmed with certain beliefs, certain perceptions, and all the rest of it all the time. The two must go together. Otherwise, we're never going to get out of this.
All freedom is our natural and eternal right, not the gift of some dark suit or uniform to decide if it's going to give it to us or not.
This is Joe Rogan, and you are tapped into the truth frequency.
You're really tapping into a hyperdimensional physics that's very related to these other dimensions. And a consciousness is, of course, the foundation, I think, of what all of space, time, matter is emanating from.
I mean, the first thing to do is kind of construct a cartography of these states, a map of these dimensions, if you will. This is what teaches each and every one of you people out there what you really are.
If you can think of reality as a projection of the collective consciousness or the collective unconscious, and you can see how disconnected and messed up and locked in self-service and fear human consciousness is at the moment.
Because that's what it's all about. They want us focusing on the fear.
When you get sick of trying to find the enemy, you realize that the enemy is inside of you, and it's your insecurities. They come from our own inability to take the responsibility.
We're looking for truth here. We're not on either side.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Hour 3 here on Polygraph Radio, truthfrequencyradio.com, our website. Speaking with Max Igan, thecrowhouse.com, and of course, Christopher Everard, enigmatv.com. We got into pretty much everything from the first 2 hours. We talked about plutonium. We talked about how these reactors work. And now let's talk about what we can do. What kind of precautions can we take to guard ourselves from what's going on over there in Japan? Make sure that if anything does come this way, that we're prepared and we're ready. And let's talk about some solutions as well. So, guys, welcome back. And Chris, do you want to pick it up from there?
Yes, my first advice is very, very simple. The contaminated particles which are being given off from Fukushima in northeastern Japan, this is highly radioactive steam which is evaporating. It's going up into the cloud layer. It's joining the jet stream